Welcome back to World Gone Weird, folks. Ready for another week of,
Welcome, everyone. It certainly does appear that our world hasn't calmed down any.
Welcome, listeners. Hope you're all doing as well as can be considering everything.
Yeah, welcome. Brace yourselves.
Okay, so headlines are screaming about these crazy floods in the central US. 16 deaths already. That's rough.
16 confirmed, and the rivers are still rising. The Ohio River in Louisville alone rose 5 feet in a day. That's not just a bad rainstorm. That's a systemic failure to prepare for predictable weather patterns, especially considering we've seen increased incidents in past years.
It's awful. I feel so bad for the communities affected. And it sounds like supply chains are being disrupted too, with the flooding around Louisville and Memphis. Makes you wonder what the long-term impact will be.
Disrupted supply chains, huh? More government overreach is what I'm thinking. Weather happens. Always has, always will. Are we sure this isn't being blown out of proportion to push some climate agenda?
Oh, Jimmy, you're such a ray of sunshine. Climate agenda or not, people are dead and underwater. Maybe a little empathy.
Empathy is essential, yes. But Jimmy raises a valid point, not necessarily about a climate agenda, but about the competency of resource allocation. The article mentions nearly half of the National Weather Service forecast offices have 20% vacancy rates. That's a measurable metric of governmental neglect. Shouldn't resources be directed there?
Absolutely. Understaffing is a huge issue. I mean, how can we expect accurate warnings and effective responses when the people in charge of predicting and managing these disasters are stretched so thin?
Maybe they need to streamline their processes? Too much bureaucratic bloat, I bet. And what about personal responsibility? Did these people have flood insurance? Did they heed the warnings?
Flood insurance? Jimmy, have you seen the price of that stuff? And you're assuming everyone can just up and leave when a mandatory evacuation order comes. Not everyone has the means, you know?
Exactly. And let's not forget about the 16-year-old firefighter who died responding to a water rescue. That's just heartbreaking. It highlights the risks emergency responders face every day, and we need to make sure they have the resources and training they need to stay safe.
Indeed. This firefighter's death raises concerns about safety protocols and equipment. What procedures are in place? Were they followed? What could be improved? These tragedies warrant in-depth systemic investigations, not just thoughts and prayers.
All right, I get it. Tragic, understaffed, blah, blah. But what's this about protests against Trump? 500,000 people across the country. Is that even accurate?
Apparently so. The articles mention protests in a bunch of cities and even some in Europe. People are not happy about, well, a lot of things, according to those signs.
Yeah, I saw that. Downsizing the government, the tariffs, civil liberties. It seems like a lot of people are feeling unheard and like the country is headed in the wrong direction.
Oh, come on. Protests are just noise. Paid agitators, probably. Soros is funding them all, I bet.
Conspiracy theories aside, the scale of these protests suggests a genuine disconnect between a significant portion of the population and the current administration. The question is, what policies specifically are they targeting beyond the tariffs? Are these protests generating concrete demands or actionable solutions?
Well, one woman in LA was dressed as a Handmaid's Tale character holding a flag that said, "Get out of my uterus." So I'm guessing abortion rights are still a hot button issue.
And the article mentions concerns about the government downsizing and the impact on social safety nets. People are worried about their jobs, their future.
Social Security is a Ponzi scheme anyway. Needs to be reformed. And these government jobs are just wasteful spending. Cut the fat. Make the government leaner and more efficient.
That's a sweeping statement without empirical support. What specific government programs are demonstrably wasteful? What quantifiable metrics are being used to assess efficiency? Gutting entire departments based on ideology, as the protesters claim, seems imprudent without thorough analysis.
And then there's Elon Musk getting dragged into it. Apparently, some protesters aren't too thrilled with his role in, well, everything.
Yeah, I saw some signs saying, honk if you hate Elon Musk. He's definitely become a lightning rod for a lot of frustration with the way things are going.
Musk is a visionary. He's saving taxpayers' money by cutting wasteful spending in the government. These protesters are just jealous of his success.
It's more complex than simple jealousy. Musk is heading this Department of Government Efficiency, which seems to involve large-scale job cuts. What are the long-term consequences of these cuts? Are essential services being compromised? Where's the data showing a net positive benefit for society?
And isn't he also advising Trump on, well, everything else? Seems like a bit much power concentrated in one eccentric billionaire's hands.
It definitely raises concerns about conflicts of interest and the influence of the wealthy on government policy. I mean, are decisions being made in the best interests of the public or in the best interests of corporations?
Corporations create jobs. They drive innovation. Get the government out of the way and let them do their thing.
Unfettered corporate power without government oversight often leads to exploitation and environmental degradation. A balance is needed, and the protests seem to be expressing a concern that the balance is tipping too far in one direction.
Speaking of corporations, anyone else catch that Jagger and Land Rover paused shipments to the US?
Yes, fears for tariffs are a very real concern, and the impact they have.
Oh yeah, that is pretty concerning, especially from the climate impact point of view.
True. Seems that a lot of car brands are having issues with tariffs.
And its effect on tourism will also be a large factor.
That's right. Seems that the ocean is having some issues with tourism now.
Right. Ocean sinking tour boats. Let's talk about this.
Okay, but let's not forget a really important issue that we all should be caring about: how our actions will have a long-term effect. We need to start acting more like adults.
There it is again. It appears that personal responsibility seems to be a core issue at hand. But how do we all get together to make that happen?
I agree, but that will be the biggest challenge we will have to face. We have a lot of things to take in and consider when making decisions.
Exactly. We should all take responsibility in making smart decisions. What is being ignored here are all the efforts everyone is putting to make sure our world succeeds.
That is very true. We need to recognize that change isn't going to happen overnight.
You know, this reminds me of something completely different, but strangely relevant. I was reading about these personalized nutrition plans powered by AI.
Oh yeah, the ones that analyze your DNA and microbiome to tell you exactly what to eat.
Sounds like more Big Brother nonsense. Who wants an algorithm telling them what to eat? I'll stick to my steak and potatoes, thank you very much.
The science is interesting, but the potential for unintended consequences is significant. What happens when personalized diets become the norm? How does that impact global food systems, resource allocation, and societal inequalities? It all traces back to the themes we've been covering.
Exactly. Imagine a world where only the wealthy can afford these hyper-personalized diets while everyone else is stuck with processed garbage. You're creating a whole new level of social stratification based on poop analysis.
And what about the environmental impact? If everyone's eating completely different things based on their individual needs, that could lead to a fragmented and inefficient food production system.
Oh, so now we're worried about cows farting too much? Give me a break. People should be free to eat whatever they want.
Freedom of choice is vital, but it doesn't negate the responsibility to consider the broader implications. The same applies to these extreme personalized addiction recovery apps, the title of the show. They sound promising on the surface, but let's really dig into that. Are they really helpful or hurtful to existing problems?
Oh, you mean the ones that promise to cure your alcoholism with a few taps on your phone? Yeah, those are something.
I can see the appeal. Addiction recovery is tough, and having a readily available tool could be a lifeline for some people.
Sounds like a crutch to me. Real recovery takes willpower and a strong support system, not some app.
And that's where the complexities begin. If an app replaces genuine human interaction and support, does it truly facilitate recovery or merely create a digital dependency? If algorithms determine personalized recovery plans, what biases are embedded in those algorithms, and who is accountable for the outcomes?
Oh, the data mining potential is huge. Imagine all the sensitive information these apps collect: your drinking habits, your triggers, your emotional state. It's a goldmine for advertisers or worse.
Yeah, the privacy implications are definitely concerning. And what happens to that data if the company goes bankrupt or gets bought out by some shady corporation?
If you're dumb enough to hand over all your personal information to an app, you deserve what you get.
That attitude dismisses the vulnerability of individuals struggling with addiction. They may be grasping at any available solution and lack the resources or knowledge to critically assess the risks. This is where ethical considerations become paramount.
It's definitely a slippery slope. I mean, are these influencers qualified to give addiction recovery advice? Are they transparent about their financial incentives? It's hard to know what's genuine and what's just marketing.
People are easily fooled. They see some pretty face on Instagram and suddenly they think they've found the answer to all their problems. Personal responsibility, people. Think for yourselves.
The reliance on influencers highlights a broader societal trend, the outsourcing of expertise to unqualified individuals with large followings. In the context of addiction recovery, this can be dangerous. Recovery is a complex process often requiring medical and psychological intervention, not just lifestyle advice from a celebrity.
And what about the digital divide? What about access? Not everyone has a smartphone or reliable internet access. So, are we creating a system where addiction recovery is only available to the privileged?
That's a really important point. If these apps become the dominant form of treatment, we could be further marginalizing vulnerable populations who already face systemic barriers to accessing care.
So, what's the solution? More government handouts? More regulations? No, thank you. Let the free market sort it out. If people want these apps, they'll buy them. If they don't, they won't.
A purely laissez-faire approach ignores the power dynamics at play. Addiction is a disease that often impairs rational decision-making. A more ethical approach would involve robust regulation, transparency in data collection practices, and a focus on ensuring equitable access to evidence-based treatment options, both digital and traditional.
You know, it all comes back to that lack of human connection. We're so obsessed with technology that we're forgetting the importance of real-life support, empathy, and community.
Absolutely. Addiction recovery is ultimately about building relationships and finding meaning in life. An app can be a tool, but it can't replace the human element.
All right, I get it. Technology is a double-edged sword, but it's not all doom and gloom. These apps could also help people who are too afraid or ashamed to seek help in person. It's a starting point, at least.
A starting point, perhaps, but a starting point that demands careful consideration of its potential unintended consequences. The ease and accessibility of these apps shouldn't blind us to the ethical implications of data collection, the role of influencers, and the fundamental need for human intervention in addiction recovery.
So basically, we're screwed either way, thanks technology.
No, not screwed. Just cautiously optimistic. We need to be aware of the risks and work to mitigate them. We need to demand ethical development, transparency, and equitable access. It's not about rejecting technology, but about using it responsibly.
Easier said than done. But I suppose it's worth a try. Maybe these protesters are onto something, after all.
It underscores the need for a scientifically driven approach to problem solving, acknowledging the limitations of technology and the enduring importance of human compassion and ethical considerations.
All right, enough heavy stuff. Let's move on to something lighter, like the impending collapse of civilization.
Haha. Right.
Always a pleasure to end on a high note.
Indeed. Until our next episode. Goodbye, everybody.
Catch you all next week if we're still here.
Stay safe out there, everyone, and remember to breathe.
And question everything.